So if you know me at all, you know that I love Indiana Jones. Most of the time. And so, with the 5th entry in the Indiana Jones series hitting cinemas in 2019, I thought I'd talk about what I want to see in this installment. Alright, let's get into it. Look, before I get into this, I do realize that all my points here are going to be a bit similar, but I really have one overarching idea for this film that I'm pushing with these. Anyway, what I mean by a new classic adventure is do a new kind of adventure, just don't make it about aliens. When I say classic adventure, I'm talking about the first 3 Indiana Jones films, where Indy goes through a series of interesting locations and has some cool action scenes along the way to find some old, usually magical in some way, artifact. Do something new with that premise, but don't try to make Indiana Jones something it isn't. Indiana Jones is an adventure series. It's not a B sci-fi series. I get that they were trying to go with this 50s B-movie vibe with Crystal Skull, but I mean, subjectively, it didn't work. So just go back to the basic formula here, but add some new twists into that formula. Have Indy find Atlantis or something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's already a video game, so why not? Or maybe have him looking for some ancient Egyptian mummy, or some sacred samurai sword, or something. There are tons of those kinds of Indiana Jones type objects that he can go after, and there are tons of adventures that can transpire in these kinds of places. Star Wars The Force Awakens was great. It was fun, it was a great revival of the franchise, it was all around a really good time. I know there's gonna be someone commenting right now that they didn't like The Force Awakens. Fine, whatever. Point is, I liked it, and I think doing something similar to the Indiana Jones franchise would be perfect. The Force Awakens pretty much ignored entries in the franchise that people don't like, while progressing the story and characters in a way that lets new people jump on board, while also giving old school fans stuff they liked. Yes, it was a retread, but that was a good way to get people back into the series, and I think Indiana Jones should do something similar. Like I just said, I think they should go back to that basic indie formula for this film to really get us back into this world, while also adding some new characters in for good measure. However, Indiana Jones is different from Star Wars, in the sense that Star Wars has a whole universe full of worlds and different characters, while Indiana Jones really rides on one guy. Take Han Solo out of Star Wars, you still have a great Star Wars film. Take Indiana Jones out of Indiana Jones, it's not Indiana Jones anymore. Obviously. Which leads me into my next 2 points, the first one being... Now let's just get this out of the way. Forget about Crystal Skull, forget about Indy's marriage, and forget about Shia LaBeouf. I don't hate Shia LaBeouf like a lot of people, but please, get him away from this franchise. I'm not sure how they should go about this, as that movie is canon. Maybe just briefly mention some horrible car crash that killed Indy's wife and son. I don't know. I think the best thing to do would be what James and Mason suggested on the Weekly Planet podcast.
The movie will perhaps begin with Indiana Jones walking away from like a gravestone that just says Mutt Jones.
It just says Shia LaBeouf.
Shia
like,
LaBeouf,
whatever.
Shia LaBeouf, the actor and the man, the acting career and the man, and then they just walk away. Yeah.
However, even if we are getting rid of Shia LaBeouf, I think we should have new characters here, at least one of which being a new young character to take the mantle of this franchise. Now, I'm not saying he has to be a young Harrison Ford clone, just the exact same charismatic guy. You can give him some different personality traits, but make it someone who can take on the series from Indy, much like Rey or Finn from The Force Awakens. The key thing about passing on the torch is if the new characters are any good, and Crystal Skull, they weren't. In The Force Awakens, they were. So if they can strike that Force Awakens note, I think this would be great. People have been talking for a while about Chris Pratt taking this on, myself included. At this point, he plays Indiana Jones Light in like every film he's in, so that kind of feels like stunt casting at this point, but sure, why not? You could also just throw in some relatively unknowns, like they did for Star Wars. Now my final point here might be a bit controversial and slightly contradictory, but just hear me out. That point is... this should be the final Indiana Jones movie. Now I know you might be thinking, why would they pass on the torch to another actor if they're just gonna end it? Well, my answer to that is, you can keep making Indiana Jones-like films. A charismatic guy goes on adventures around the world, great. But this should be the end of the character of Indiana Jones. Whether they should kill him or not, I don't know. Apparently, they're not going to. Whatever, that's not really what's important to me here. What I think is important is that we wrap up the Indiana Jones story and we never see him again. He's had tons of fantastic adventures, and him and his films will always have a place in my heart. But now, it's time to stop. I don't want to see Harrison Ford doing another 5 Indiana Jones films, getting progressively grumpier and grumpier with each one. I want my childhood hero to go out on a high note, but I also want him to go out. Sure, Chris Pratt or whoever can keep on having tons of adventures and tons of cool films, but just don't call them Indiana Jones. I know you want that name recognition, but please, I just want this hero story to finish, and then we can move on and finally look back on his films. That is all. So those were the things I want to see in the next Indiana Jones film. What do you want to see? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram at BHL_Hudson, check out my Twitter at BHL_Hudson, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.